Want to talk today about a topic that I feel is of absolute critical importance, particularly to men, but also there's going to be a crossover here for women as well. And I was inspired to make this video from a guy that commented on one of my previous videos talking about how he had battled through alcoholism, but was still suffering from this severe lack of confidence. And he also touched on the fact that this particularly bothered him around the opposite sex, around women. And he asked me for my suggestions on what I would do. And this video today, I'm going to start with a caveat here. I do not have all the answers. Nobody does. And in all of the videos I make, I can only ever share my own perspective and things that have worked for me. And when I share my insights into my problems and the solutions that I'm come up with, I'm not coming from a place of I have all the answers. You know, I'm regularly checking the comments on these videos, and when I see that someone has an opposing view to me, I will take note of it, as long as it's not overly offensive. If it's someone that's just presenting a different way of seeing things, I like to absorb that and digest that. But I just want to start this video with a caveat that I do not have all the answers, and I can only ever share what has worked for me. And so the topic today really is going to be around men's confidence, and in particular this worrying decline in men's confidence. It is something that the more I look for, the more I see. And in particular, guys that are, I would say, kind of early 20s onwards. I think when you're in your kind of late teens, going into your early 20s, you're kind of full of this, I don't know, blind confidence. You don't really know the troubles that can present themselves in life, and you are ignorant to them in a way. And it is very difficult as you get older not to let those things get on top of you. And the more those things get on top of you, and the more you are unable to handle these things, the harder it is to build confidence, and the more your confidence slips away. And so I have noticed this huge decline in men's confidence, in how men feel about themselves and what they are doing to try and remedy that. And what I have noticed is that a guy will either go one of two ways typically. He will concede to the fact that he is useless, that he has no purpose, that he has no place in society, he has no friends and nobody cares about him, and he will go inwards. And this is something that I've definitely done in the past. My confidence was so low that I felt as though I didn't want to be out in the world. I didn't want to be exposed to people that might see me for who I really was. I remember one time I got almost stuck indoors. I almost became agoraphobic, and it became such a problem that I was scared to pick up the phone, which is mad to think about now, but it happened. So you can either go that way, or the opposite is that guys will nearly kill themselves trying to make themselves a better version. So they will try to fit into a career as long as it pays as well as it can. They will go to the gym and lift weights and get as big as they can. And they will cheat as well. Guys will take steroids in order to grow bigger, and they will try to invest in get rich quick schemes and try to get rich off of crypto and all sorts of things. They take shortcuts, and this inevitably will lead to failure as well. And at the very least, it's going to lead to this false, inflated sense of ego. And I've done this as well. You know, I haven't taken steroids, but I have found myself getting caught up in get rich quick schemes, thinking that there must be a way that I can earn as much money as I possibly can, as quick as I can, and every time they have failed and led to disappointment, and that has also crushed my confidence. I went to the gym, I pushed myself really hard, I made myself ill. My brain, well, my part of my brain that sends the signal to produce testosterone pretty much shut down, so my testosterone plummeted for a while, and that was all because I was pushing myself too hard at the gym. And I think when certain guys get to a point where maybe they have succeeded in these endeavours, maybe they have managed to find a career and improved their financial circumstances, or maybe they have maybe they've managed to get to the gym and they've worked hard at it and they've got massive, or they've lost a load of weight, they've got a six-pack, whatever it is that they were hoping to do, but they get to that point and then they feel disappointed. They were expecting to feel different and they don't, and they still feel the same as they did before they made those changes. And this is also crushing for your confidence, because if you've really tried to do something about it and it hasn't worked, then where do you go next? You know, at least if you shut down and isolate yourself, you can always hold on to the hope that you could, if you really wanted to, change things. That possibility is always there, but it's almost more soul-crushing when you try so hard to become a certain person with the expectation that it is going to change the way you feel about yourself and the world, and you work so hard at it and it doesn't make any change at all. And in some cases you can feel worse than you did in the first place. So if your confidence is at a low, and you've either maybe isolated yourself, you fall into that group that's isolated, or you have been working really hard at something and it's not making the change, you don't feel more confident, then I've got a suggestion, and this is something that worked very well for me, and I suspect it will work very well for a majority of people listening to this channel. And that is to attend a men's group. And if you've kept your eye on the comments, you'll know that I've replied to a lot of you saying that a men's group was a foundational thing for me. It was really something that I could build my confidence on. And the particular... Sorry, my phone's going off. The particular men's group that I go to is one called Andy's Man Club, AMC for short. And if you're in the UK, they are based nationwide. I think they started up in the north, they've got a bigger presence there, but they are all over the UK, and you can go on their website. I'll put a link in the description. And I think there's like a postcode finder or something like that, and it will tell you your local group. If there isn't one nearby, then what you can do is an online group as well. So there is one for guys that don't have a local group, or perhaps they've got some kind of disability or issue with getting to a club, and there's an online version of the group for them as well. Andy's Man Club is not the only one that's available. There are lots of men's groups. Men Talk is one that I used to do, which is online, and there's tons of others. Just literally put in men's group near me into Google, and I'm sure something will come up. Either there'll be a local group or there'll be one online. I would suggest that going to a in-person meeting is probably going to be more beneficial, but if you don't have that option, then there's nothing wrong with doing an online one as well. So why are men's groups so important? I think a lot of the stuff that I talk about and the way that I choose to, or the way I'm trying to live my life, all looks back to the way that we are designed to live, the way our ancestors used to live. We are by nature social creatures. And that is not to say that we all have an equal experience with our social lives, but deep down we are all social creatures. And the problem with men especially, we know that we have been told by society that it is not all right to talk about our problems. You know, big boys don't cry is a really common thing that we hear growing up. And it is so damaging to young men, because what it does is it creates shame about how you're feeling. And particularly these days, you can't sugarcoat it. Things are tough. It's not easy to find fulfilling work. It is not easy to find fulfilling work that pays well. And it is not easy to afford to live at the moment. You know, we're going through a cost of living crisis. Housing prices are crazy. Things aren't easy at the moment, and so it is only natural that men are going to become stressed about these things, and in particular guys that have families to look after. They feel trapped in a way. They can't make any changes. And when we are given this message at a young age that we can't express how we're feeling, we create a new feeling in ourselves, which is shame. And I think most guys, particularly ones that I've met that are prepared to open up and be vulnerable, most guys carry some element of shame with them. Shame about how they're feeling. They feel that what they are feeling is not supposed to be felt, and therefore there's this thing that they are carrying around that they are ashamed of, and they're carrying this level of shame. And before anything else, I just want you to know that you don't need to be ashamed. It's all right to not feel all right. And one of the biggest helps I see from going to a men's group is being able to shed this shame that it's not okay to feel the way that you're feeling. When I first went to this men's group, I was quite nervous, quite shut down, and there's this kind of, you all sit around in a circle. In this particular group, you pass around a ball and you take it in turns to talk and share how your day was and all that kind of stuff. And I struggled to talk at first, and the more I went, the easier it became. And then I took a small break of about 5 weeks. Some of you that follow the channel regularly will know that I went off to Thailand for a while. But I came back, and then I didn't go for a few months, and I've recently started going again, probably for the last 6 weeks, maybe 2 months. And it has really been transformational to the way that I feel about how I feel, if that makes sense. It is allowing me to just shed this layer of shame and therefore deal with the emotion. Because what you do is, when you're feeling shit or stressed or upset or emotional for any reason, that's one layer, and then you kind of build this layer on top, which is your shame. And you have to get through that layer of shame before you can deal with this issue. And I think that's where a lot of guys go wrong, is they try to deal with this issue without dealing with that outer layer of kind of armor that's there. And the biggest help that I have found in these groups is just being able to get rid of that shame. I have seen guys come in and their body language is shut down. They've made themselves as small as possible. Their voices are really quiet. They don't want to talk loudly. They don't want to take up too much space. And they've got some serious shit to share, some of these guys. They've got some real valid reasons to be upset. And when they're finally starting to talk about their problems, you can see as the weeks go by, they just get lighter. You know, you can see this weight coming off their shoulders, and suddenly they're more upright, they're talking louder, they're finding it easier to communicate with other guys. And it's just such a magical thing to see somebody transform like that. And that is why I want to get into coaching. It's because I've had a very similar experience, not just through men's groups, but also through coaching, which is the next thing that I would consider if I was trying to grow my confidence. Either coaching, therapy, something along those lines. If you can afford it, if you have access to it. In the UK, there are all sorts of government-funded options as well. One is Talk Plus, I think. And you can sign up, and yes, there will be a waiting list, but you get to speak to someone about your problems. And the common theme here is just talking about what's going on. And just by saying the words out loud, rather than having them bouncing around in your head, you normalize it. And especially when you can tell it to someone that is impartial and someone that can share your experience of the world and doesn't act in the way that you worry they might act. When you start to see that there are lots of other guys or girls going through exactly the same shit, or worse than yours, or maybe not as bad, whatever it is, when you get to see people's reactions when you share something that you feel ashamed about and that they're all right with it, you start to feel accepted. And when you can get rid of that layer of shame, you can start to deal with the problem. So to that guy that asked me, how do I grow my confidence? Men's groups. Men's groups, either in person or online. Find a mentor or a coach or a therapist, someone that can help you, just encourage you to start talking and to get this process of shedding this layer of shame started. And I guarantee once you get started, it is so much easier to continue with that momentum and start making changes that really do start to build your confidence. When you realise that it is normal to feel the way that you do, your confidence is naturally going to grow. And the guy also mentioned about dating life and women, and how he can improve his confidence there. If I were you, I wouldn't worry about that shit right now. Don't worry about women. Those things will naturally come, and you will naturally attract a partner when you are in a good place. Anybody that you attract into your life at this point is going to match you in some way on an energetic level. And anytime I've ever been in a bad relationship, it's because I have met someone when I'm in a bad place, and it turns out that they are also in a bad place. And it's weird how these kind of energies tend to connect, and those relationships always end painfully. And the best relationships I've ever had are the ones where I have been in a really good place, where I have felt like things were going well and I was happy with the way that my life was going. It was in those moments that I have met some of the best people and had some of the best relationships in my life. So it all begins with you. So just stop projecting yourself into the future and worrying about finding this girl that's going to fix all your problems, because it isn't going to happen. I made a video on this a while ago, and there were some things that I said in that my position has changed a bit about not having a girlfriend, but ultimately you are going to have a much better relationship, not just with girls, but with everybody around you, by loving yourself first and dealing with those problems. So I hope this video was helpful today. As always, it's a topic that I feel so passionate about, one that I want to help people with in any way I can, which is exactly why I make these videos. When your confidence is in the toilet and you don't know what to do about it, it is such a tough place to be, particularly when you feel like you're on your own and you can't share these problems. Humans are by nature social creatures. We are designed to share problems. And us men, we used to do that after a hunt around a campfire. We used to talk, we used to take the piss out of each other, but we always felt like we were in a group and supported. And the reason these men's groups are, I think, so important is because it brings us back to this like ancestral need that we have, that we just seem to have forgotten about, or we've got very good at disguising. You know, there are so many distractions in this world that allow us to not feel this shame and this loneliness and this lack of confidence. It is so easy to hide away from the world, but you don't have to. And growing your confidence is going to start with just being yourself around people and telling your subconscious that it's okay to just be you. And believe you me, when you can start being you more often, you are going to attract people in your life, whether that's friends or women or whatever it is you're into. You are going to attract the people that are going to be best for you, and you are going to be best for them. Put on a mask, you will attract different type of people. And if you were to, say, meet a girl when you've got this mask on, then you're always going to have to be wearing that mask the whole time you have the relationship. And when you can't sustain that, when eventually the honeymoon period wears off and you are unable to hold that mask up anymore and it drops and she sees you for you, you can't blame her for not wanting to be there anymore. It's because you are not what you advertised yourself to be. And that goes both ways as well. I've been in relationships before where I have been quite upfront about my expectations and what is important to me in a relationship, and that person has been that way for a certain length of time, but eventually that wasn't them and they were unable to hold up that mask anymore, and the mask slipped and you feel cheated. You know, be respectful of people's time, be yourself, and people will naturally be drawn into your life. You have to put yourself out there, but put yourself out there in places where you are far more likely to be accepted for who you are. And that's why men's groups is such a big thing. So as always, I just hope this video was of massive help to you. Let me know in the comments what came up for you. What's your experience? Have you been to men's groups before? Are you going to now start looking for a men's group? It has been life-changing for me, not just for myself, but also just seeing how amazing these transformations are in other people. And I'm pretty confident that if you gave it a go, that you would notice some massive benefits too. So if you like the way that I see the world, you can sign up to my newsletter in the link in the description, and there are also a limited number of coaching spaces open. You can click on the link in the same description and apply just on a Google form. Hope this video was useful, and I will see you in the next one.